Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise, and we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer, dear listener, welcome yet again to another wonderful episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. It's indeed always a privilege and an honor to come to you and to share life-changing business education and to bring another guest. And do I have a great guest for you? I have Miss Thulaganyo Linchwe, who is going to share with us on all matters concerning financial planning with regard specifically to women, and also shine a bit of a light on her niche business. But let me leave it to you, Thulaganyo, to explain who you are and to share your background with the viewer.
Thank you, Mr. Mogobe, for having me. It's a pleasure. I am Thulaganyo Linchwe. My background is in financial planning law. I studied at the University of the Free State in Bloemfontein, and I'm currently also pursuing my postgrad studies in financial planning.
Okay, you want a PhD in financial planning? Is that what you're after?
Not necessarily, but obviously I needed a professional qualification, on top of my academic qualifications. So I thought, okay, let me challenge myself to a postgrad.
So like me, you're a lawyer?
I am a lawyer, I just haven't practiced yet.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. The subject of financial planning is a bit mystical to most people. How would you describe it in a nutshell?
Basically, look at it more along the lines of taking charge of your finances. That's all there is to it. Yes.
All right. I want you to explain the subject we're going to discuss.
Okay.
Misconceptions and breaking down walls around those misconceptions.
Yeah.
Especially with regard to finances as they concern women. Okay. Why are you treating women different from men?
I'm not necessarily treating them different from men. It's just a niche that I found and I explored. Being a woman myself, I decided, okay, fine. I have this qualification. How can I use it to empower women and obviously, do something that I love as well? And I realized, looking at how women are not in most cases as economically empowered like men, I wanted to offer them a service that would help them maneuver their everyday finances. Okay. So this is where the coaching idea came from. I started off with social media pages, and when I saw that I can actually make money out of this thing, that's where now the coaching started.
Okay, and what's the name of the business and where is it based?
Femi Finances. Okay, I operate mostly online. My sessions are on Zoom, the bookings are also online. And the thing for me is when I started, I wasn't actually targeting Botswana. I wanted a young woman from wherever she is around the world to be able to relate. And fortunately for me, I have been able to, get clients from across SADC and so forth. Yes.
Okay. When you say the basics of finances or basics of understanding finances, we'll go deeper, but at a superficial level, what are you addressing?
I'm addressing understanding the importance of saving. Knowing that you have to have an investment of some sort, even if it's just like a unit trust, and also understanding estate planning, especially if you can I don't want to say afford, but if at least you have enough assets to think of life when you're no longer able to take care of your children and so on and so forth. Yeah. Okay,
let's talk about saving specifically.
Please.
You make it a point to stress that saving is not investing.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Okay. So, I think generally with financial education, the one thing that we all emphasize is you need to save. And I think sometimes for the client or for the consumer, they can make the mistake of thinking, okay, but if I'm saving, then I'm kind of investing as well, and that's not the case. You know, I mean, you can save towards your investments, which is what I usually encourage, but look at saving as preparing for emergencies. And this is where I always say, you know, have an emergency fund. That is important.
Why is saving not investing if the investment account earns you a little interest?
Saving is not investing because it's investing while we're looking at it from a long-term perspective. Saving, we're saying if something happens tomorrow, you should be able to access those funds. Yes.
Now, women in Botswana, do they gravitate towards saving, and why?
I'd say younger women. Okay, but my clientele is mainly younger women. Yes, so they do.
And what's the age range you're talking about?
25 to say 40. Yes. I'd say they do, but it's also something that it's new to us. So these are conversations that you have to have on a regular basis. Yeah.
And what is the main thing you say to a client in trying to emphasize the importance of saving?
Okay. The main thing is knowing the why and having a goal behind it. Because I know that we live in a culture of just save anything. You know, but if you're just saving anything, it's easy to slip up. Unlike if you have a goal, unlike if you know why you're doing it. Yes.
Okay. Within the field of financial planning, there's a field called personal finance.
Yes.
What is that one about, and what is the difference?
Okay. So personal finance is basically you and your everyday finances. Yeah, you and your everyday finances and how you would manage them.
And it's a field on its own?
No, not necessarily. I wouldn't say it's a field on its own, because you know financial planning is a combination of a lot of things. And this is why I always say to people, it's fine, you know, you can DIY, but get expert advice.
Come to you now.
Yes.
And still, I want us to really talk a little bit more about why saving is a challenge for us. Is it a cultural issue?
I think it's a cultural issue. I'm not even gonna say it's more on finances or the lack thereof. It's a cultural issue. We're not used to it, you know, and we're used to robbing Peter to pay Paul. But when you are in a position where you could actually afford to save, yes.
Being a member of a Motselo, does that constitute saving?
Yes, that is saving. And I usually say, you know, when you get your payout at the end of the year or whenever, that is a perfect time to actually talk to a financial planner.
Can you explain how it works and what is the ideal way to be part of a Motselo, to make it worthwhile for you?
Okay, I think depending on whether you want like the old...
Perhaps explain to those who might not know what a Motselo is and then take it from there.
We would, I think in finance terms, look at it more along the lines of crowdfunding. You know, a group of individuals come together towards a particular investment, and whether it's through a bank or any other financial institution. So then at the end, you share the investments, and yeah.
Yes, but now how does it work for you to optimize it as a saving mechanism?
I think the best way to do it is to then know, like, okay, so if we agree we're 10 or 20 whatever, the reason why we're doing this is because of A, B, C, and D. And my advice is usually that, you know, financial institutions have people who are there to help and assist you with these things. So let's try and move away a bit from the traditional way of doing it in order for us to be able, especially to optimize the investment services, because it is an investment at the end of the day. Yeah.
I've heard people say money is not so important. Some even say it's the root of all evil. And help those people overcome that thinking to the point where they think saving money is important.
Isn't important.
Is important.
Okay. I mean, you know, the thing with money is that it's an energy. You know, if you're negative towards it, you are most likely going to mess up along the way. But if you are you're open and you're willing to learn more about it, I always say to people, you need to know your money personality, because sometimes you don't know our money personalities. Hence, a lot of the financial mistakes that we make. So the thing with money is you are the one who's supposed to be in charge of it and not the other way around.
And what are these personalities you're talking about?
Okay, fine. So you're either a spender, you're either a saver, or you are somewhere in between. Yes. So basically try and figure out where you are. And as well, being a spender is not, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. You just need to spend on things that would benefit you at the end of the day.
Well, when somebody comes to you,
Yes.
How do you determine where they fall? And is it important to categorize them early?
It is important to categorize them early. So that is why I prefer, like what I would do is would sit and would go through every area of your financial life and then assess you based off that and give you recommendations on what you can do to improve your financial life going forward.
Okay.
Yes.
So in fact, do you then have a questionnaire? How does it work?
A questionnaire. A questionnaire. You go down, you fill it, and then I come back and give you a report. Okay, fine. Based on how you answered this and what I've seen so far, I think this would work for you.
Okay.
Yes.
And is there a change? Do you see any change? Are people now beginning to appreciate the importance of saving?
They are. I think what I saw actually last year when we went on lockdown with COVID, I think that was the peak season for me, business-wise, because now everybody is scared. They don't know what's going to come tomorrow. So I think we are getting to that point where people know that you can't live just for now. You have to think of tomorrow.
So in a sense, COVID was a blessing.
No, it was. It was. Okay, yeah, it was.
Maybe you can explain why, because that may sound a bit macabre to some people.
I mean, in a sense that it was, the one time where I could see that people really want to know how they can improve their finances. Everybody is concerned now that, okay, fine, you know what, all along I was just living my life, but now I'm a little scared about what tomorrow holds. What can I do?
Okay.
Please.
Let's talk about the importance of a healthy relationship with your debtors.
Yes.
By implication, you're saying most people have a dysfunctional relationship.
They do.
Explain both those concepts.
Okay. Dysfunctional relationship in a sense that, when you go and get debt of whatever reason, the intention is you want to go pay back somebody. But then it's like when you start defaulting or whatever comes up, then now you miss the importance of going back and saying, hey, I am incurring problems here and there, give me time, and so on and so forth. So it just becomes a little game, but you are forgetting that the interest is still accruing and so on and so forth. So it doesn't really help you at the end of the day. So I always encourage that pay on time if you can, and if you can pay more, even better.
Okay, what is your attitude towards bomachonisa? Should we even use them?
I'm gonna get in trouble for this. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't.
And your reason?
My reason is, it becomes a vicious cycle that in most cases you're not even able to get yourself out of. And I know that, half the time people don't willingly opt for that service. You are in a tough situation. But by all means, I would really advise.
But have they not really helped here and there? I'm talking about micro lenders in general.
Yeah.
Or are there different categories of micro lenders?
I think if it's a professional, more professional kind of service, then maybe you could opt for it. But generally I feel like don't borrow, especially to maintain your lifestyle, unless it's really a pressing situation. But it's not something.
Is there a formula? How much should one borrow and how much of their salary should they retain in relation to the repayments? Is there some kind of guideline?
Okay, so I usually say for the important things in your life, you can allocate 50% of your salary to that, and a portion of that would obviously include your debts. Yes.
How do you determine importance?
Something that you had to do at that point. Yes.
That's all?
Yeah, something that you had to do, because half the time, well, not half the time, most of the time, certain expenses are not necessary. You can find ways around them.
Okay. There are those who, when they have difficulty paying their debtors, change addresses and run away. Is that the proper behavior to take?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. You need to be. The thing is, I mean, your lender is also their business, right? So just sit down and think about the implications of your actions on the business as well. So this is why I always say, be honest and be upfront. I feel like if somebody comes to you asking for a grace period, you are more inclined to listen than somebody just disappearing on you without.
There's a gentleman on YouTube called Jeff Ramsey.
Yes.
Who's totally hostile to the idea of debt. He says everybody should live debt free. Do you share that view? Because I don't.
I mean, well, not. I don't think debt is bad. You just need to be able to manage it. That's the principle. Just be able to manage it. Because the instances where I feel, it's probably not avoidable. Yeah. So the main thing is just be able to manage it.
Is it possible to be addicted to debt? And if so, what is the cure?
It is possible to be addicted to debt. Things like, say, clothing store accounts. Yes, I feel that's how these things start. And next thing is just spiraling out of control. And like every other addiction, it usually starts with you recognizing that you have a problem. And I think from most of the sessions that I've had, the main financial issues that people have is debt. It's not even a thing of, not being able to save or so on and so forth, but just the inability to manage your debts.
So how do you go about making somebody discover that they have an addiction problem?
That they have an addiction problem? I mean, that would obviously come from, you mean as a service or just somebody that
as part of your service, how do you help?
Okay. If, say 70 to 80% of your income goes towards your debts, then that's a problem. And if mid-month you keep borrowing and things like that, those are red flags, because you need to allow a person as well to be open enough with you to share these things, and then you'll realize.
In terms of getting out of debt, there are two schools of thought. There's one school that says debt consolidation is the way. Get all the people that you owe, put them in one basket, and then maybe get one global bank or get one global creditor to face and deal with. And there are those who say, no, keep it separate, deal with people individually because characters are different. What is your attitude? I also feel deal with everybody individually. And because some debts, you can get rid of them quickly. So just deal with everybody individually. You don't believe that consolidation has any benefit?
I wouldn't say it doesn't have a benefit, but I don't think it's an option for everybody. You see, the thing with finances is that we can't have a one-size-fits-all type of approach.
Okay.
Yes.
Now we're going deeper now, drilling deeper into the actual relationship with money.
Yeah.
Is the money something you can have a relationship with the same you would have with a person?
I think so.
I'm asking you this because there's somewhere where the Bible says in the book of Proverbs that a fool and his money are soon parted. You know that part?
I do.
Please help us deal with it. There's a lot to deal with there.
I think you can have a relationship with money because it's it's one of the most important things in your life. So if that relationship is distorted or negative, then it affects a huge portion of your life. So if you try and keep it under control, then things go well for you, somewhat. Yes. So I think it's definitely a relationship. It's not one of those things where you can have a willy-nilly type of attitude towards.
So what is the ideal to strive for? What is the ideal status when you say, now, this relationship is good, this is a perfect relationship with money?
I think it's good when it starts working for you. You start getting returns. You know, you are comfortable. You get peaceful sleep at night. Yeah, obviously everybody has different goals, but I think mainly is seeing the money work for you.
I think when you start avoiding your calls, then there's a problem.
Then there's a problem.
Okay, and do you assist people in that situation? How do you go about it?
With debts. That's not that's not my I always say I'm not a debt counselor. It's
What's the difference? It's a different skill set.
Well, not necessarily, but I want a more holistic approach to your personal finances as opposed to dealing with just one area. Yes. So from our sessions, I want you to be enlightened on different financial related topics.
Okay.
Yes.
One of your big messages: invest in financial education beyond just books,
Yes.
beyond just videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
What do you mean, and can you elaborate?
Okay. So I think because we have access to all this information online, it's very easy to miss the importance of getting a professional. It's just like, how we would decide, I googled my symptoms and so I know, what my problem is. I don't think it works like that. At some point you need expert advice to help you with certain things. Like, for example, even if I were to talk to somebody about shares, I would still refer them to a broker, because that's not my area of expertise. I may have a background in financial planning, but I would still lead you to somebody who knows in depth more than me. So that's just basically what I'm saying, that okay, it's fine to know what you know, but at the end of the day, challenge yourself to go and see a professional.
Okay, and the professional will help because?
The professional will help lead and guide you in the right direction. Because sometimes, say for example, you are investing in one thing because your neighbor told you that is what you're supposed to do, or that it works for them, while looking at you, say maybe as a young woman, unmarried, no children and so forth, the advice given to you and a lady, who's a family woman would totally be different.
Isn't part of the problem the fact that financial planning is a fairly new and somewhat unregulated profession?
No, definitely.
And I wonder what you guys are doing in the field to regulate it and to help the confidence gain more confidence.
I
help
think
the public gain more confidence.
Okay, so I think the first thing that I would always say to people is ask your coach, your advisor, your planner if they are regulated. Currently, I am regulated by the Financial Planning Institute.
Oh, here in Botswana?
No, it's an international.
Okay, based in the States or what?
No, in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So just that thing.
How do they regulate you, for instance?
Okay, so if there's anything wrong, any complaints, that would be the first place for my clients to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I'd lose my license in the process if they see anything that is not
Does
right.
NBFIRA have a role?
Yes, no, definitely they do, but I've been offering an online service for now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So it's not something that they are directly involved.
No.
Okay. All right. Let's go further with our conversation.
Okay.
Finances are not one size fits all.
Yes.
There's an important. I think you're emphasizing the importance of really investing in this. I suppose this ties to your earlier point that money, handling money depends on the personality type, the money type.
Yeah.
Can you please unpack it a bit more for us?
Okay. So, like I mentioned earlier, what would work for a younger woman without as many responsibilities as a family woman, you need to look at things like that. So each client is different. You advise a person based on that situation. And this is why I always say to people, go and talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. Yes.
But there are universal principles as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely.
So how do you make the balance?
I think when you come to a point where you feel, I know, I've learned as much as I can about this, I want to take it a notch higher, then definitely seek professional advice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the unpopular subject of estate planning in African cultures.
Yes.
First, why is it difficult for African entrepreneurs and Africans in general to talk about what happens after they are dead?
I think
why is it culturally taboo?
The minute you mention a will to an African, then the first thing they say to you, oh, so you think I'm going to die? You want to kill me? Those are some of the things that I've met. So, but I think it's very important.
Why do we talk like that? What is the basis of saying that?
Isn't it just a cultural thing? The taboo behind it? I don't think it has any real basis. It's just one of those things.
And what's your advice? How should we handle it?
Advice is we need to have these discussions, especially at family level, because that is where the complications now then come from. A parent dies, the children are fighting, and so on and so forth. So it's very important.
How do you start that difficult conversation with your child? Can you help the listeners?
With your child or with your...
With your child or with your spouse. You said it should start in the family.
Okay. I think if you as a parent, the best thing that you can do for your children is ensure that you leave them a lasting legacy. And a will is one of the ways in which you can do that. I mean, I was shocked when I found out that registering a will at the master's office is actually 30 pula per year. So just imagine if it's 30 pula per year, what's stopping us? So I think we really need to emphasize and encourage the culture of having wills, especially as Botswana.
But do you suggest that someone should share with their children what's in that will?
No, not necessarily. No, not
How
necessarily.
do you approach the whole subject?
How do you approach the whole subject? That way, now as a parent, your primary responsibility is to ensure that you have a will. You don't need to include your children, they don't need to know. But part of loving them is ensuring that everything is written down on paper, even just for your spouse. I think, yeah.
Have you studied things like trusts
Yes, I have.
How are they different from an ordinary will?
Okay, fine. So I usually encourage trusts, especially for people who are in business, so that the business is in the name of the trust and so forth.
You have to explain. People don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so that even if you are not around anymore, the trustees, who are basically the custodians of the trust, are able to continue the functioning and the running of the business for the benefit of your family, who would then in this instance be beneficiaries and so forth.
So as both a lawyer and a financial planner, how do you go about creating a trust?
Okay, fine. So it's a written instrument, just like a will. And then the main thing is, obviously you divest property or assets from yourself as an individual into the trust. You would then be the founder, and then you would have a few trustees depending on the number that you want. The office of the master usually encourages an independent trustee. So this would maybe be your lawyer, your accountant, and so forth. And then once that process has taken place, you would register it with the office of the master.
Why do you think it's advantageous to have a trustee, a trust, as opposed to having a will?
Okay, especially for continuity purposes, I feel it's important, or it would be beneficial to have a trust than a will, so that you know that the assets or the businesses still remain in the family, as opposed to me then now deciding, okay, fine, I think I want to sell the business.
Okay, and the process, how cumbersome or otherwise is it?
Mm-hmm. It's actually a straightforward process. If you have your lawyer or your financial planner, they can help you with that. But obviously, because this is something that would have then to be registered through the master's office, they go through it. If there's any issues, they would communicate with you, and
What about an entrepreneur just starting up, who has every ambition to create an empire, but
Yes.
might be just starting up? Should they put that trust in place for future purposes?
I usually say try and wait until you've accumulated enough, because also think of the costs that would come with whoever will be putting together the trust for you as well.
Are the costs normally significant?
It would, I guess, depend from service provider to service provider. Yes.
Okay, so you're saying that those who are just starting up, they should stick with the will, but those who are established should go for trusts.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd say that.
All right. And then in choosing a trustee, what are you looking at?
I think look at somebody that you can trust. That's the main thing. But also somebody who would, especially if this is a business trust, somebody who's also entrepreneurial as you, and you know that they would have not just your family's best interest at heart, but the businesses as well. Because the main thing here is ensuring continuity and growth of the business, even in your absence.
In regard to all the trustees?
Yeah, I feel in regard to all the trustees, the main thing is trust. Like somebody who would, whether you're around or not, you can rely on this person.
Okay, you mentioned the fact that a lot of working women are single women.
Yes.
And you want to bring them into this conversation. How are you doing that?
Okay, so I think for most of them, one of the things that I usually encourage is education planning for their children. And fortunately, we have a lot of investments that are tailor-made specifically for education planning. So we also have it's possible for me to sit down and calculate for you how much school fees could be in 10, 20 years and so forth. So even if you're saving or investing, you have an idea of more or less how much it would cost by then.
Well, how do you determine based on your crystal ball? Is it based on inflation or what?
Yeah, no, based on based on inflation. It's just a basic financial calculation, really.
Okay.
Yes.
But it's normally in the ballpark figure of being correct in terms of 10 years ahead.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I guess you don't want to reveal all your trade secrets.
No, because now how will they come if they know everything?
Okay. No, I appreciate that.
Yes.
Okay. So you said it's never too early to discuss retirement planning.
Yes.
What do you say to people like me who are totally against retirement, who believe that you should be engaged until your last day, you should be active until day last?
No, I admire people like you. In fact, I encourage that. But also, do have a retirement financial plan on the side.
Yes.
Especially because things like disability, those are not things you can foresee. Yes.
And the viewer is watching saying, look, I'm only maybe 25 years old.
Yeah.
How do I deal with the issue of retirement, which seems to be 40 years ahead of me?
The younger you are, that's like the perfect time to start. Because what we have seen is that even if your employer has a retirement package, unfortunately it will not be enough to sustain you in 40, 50 years time by the time you retire. So then we would advise that you supplement that with a retirement policy.
So are you encouraging people to save for retirement, or is there some other mechanism?
Yes, I'm encouraging people to save for retirement. If you can have a side hustle, even better. But just ensure that you have a financial product that is also specifically for your retirement.
And with specifically with regard to your niche market, which is women,
yes.
How do you approach the subject of retirement?
Okay, so because I work mainly with younger women, the first thing that I usually say to them is that among the recommendations is, do you get a retirement policy? Yeah, that's one of the main things.
If the answer is yes?
If the answer is?
Yes, there's a retirement policy.
Then
work?
No, that's not going to be enough. Then you have to have a second one.
Okay.
Yes, that is really
and
the
it's obtained through some insurance company.
Yes, insurance companies. Yes.
Okay, all right. So the earlier you start, the better.
The earlier you start, the better.
Okay. Now, is this where the education aspect also comes in?
That is where the education aspect also comes in.
By that I mean, do you then include, as part of the retirement plan,
yes,
school fees and so on and so forth?
Yes, that is.
How does it work?
Okay, so isn't it we have now established how much the school fees will be by then. So the policy that you opt for should be to some extent be able to cover that. Yes. So this is why earlier I was saying the thing about financial planning is that it's holistic. It has to touch every aspect of your life.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, in terms of the children,
yes,
it's not just education.
Yeah.
Do you now have to be thinking in terms of having them lend a bit of a soft lending? Do you recommend that people think in terms of arranging a soft lending for their children when they come out of school?
No, definitely. That is, I feel that is one of the best things that you can do for your children. It is to ensure that they don't have to navigate some of the difficulties that come with being a young person in Africa. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have a special message with regard to the young women?
Okay.
I think this is the part of the show where maybe you want to motivate them and share a takeaway message that you think they can embrace and take away from this discussion.
Okay.
That's when you look at the camera.
Okay. So I think the main thing that I would say to young women is that just start, because half the time we wait for the perfect time, and there will never be a perfect time. One thing that I learned is that you need to bootstrap your way to the top. Use the little that you have, and gradually you will be able to get where you are. And another thing is that I feel we possess a lot of skills, but we don't use them to our advantage. So if you know that you're skilled in something, I always say that then add value to it and add a price tag to it, and you'll never go wrong. So
okay.
Yeah.
I think you also want to add on this question of the side hustle. I've noticed that you believe in the importance of the side hustle.
Yeah. I found myself, I don't want to say in between jobs, unemployed, but because I already had a side hustle, I didn't feel I'd say the difficulties of unemployment that much. So by all means, please don't we usually say don't sleep on yourself, so don't do that.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a part of the show where you can get to ask me any question of your choice. Go ahead.
Okay. So as a young person who's basically started my business, no funding, no nothing, just me, and my laptop literally, what would you say to me going forward?
You have a special advantage because a lot of entrepreneurs who have had were born with a silver spoon in their mouth had a lot more to overcome, because first there's a culture of entitlement that comes with that, and then there's a certain amount of laziness that comes to that. I like the book that has been written by a guy called Damon John, and he's one of the sharks on Shark Tank.
Okay.
And his book is entitled The Power of Broke. And he argues, and I agree with him, that there's a special energy and a special tenacity that comes with having to do everything and to be relying on yourself. And there are many examples that you and I can give where people have been born into very privileged backgrounds and they went ahead and scuttled all that. Whereas on average, even if you look at the Forbes 500 of the Forbes 1000, you find the great majority of those people at the top are those who started with nothing. We can look at the 10 top richest people in the world, with the possible exception of Bill Gates. All of them really started from zero. So it is a huge advantage to start from nothing. You may not believe it, but it's a fact. There's a book that I've read by a guy called The Obstacle is a Way, by a guy called Ryan Holiday. And his main argument is that the obstacle is going to actually pave your way. You need to see what lesson you can pick from the obstacle, embrace that obstacle, and then go through it, and you'll find that it's actually your path. And a lot of people miss their goals and miss their life's purpose because when they see massive obstacles, they cower away from them instead of finding how they can go through, go over, go aside, do everything that it takes to penetrate through and get to the other side. I hope I've answered your question.
No, you have, and I really can't wait to then come back and say, Mr. Mogobe, thank you. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. What you meant.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. Do you want to look at the camera one more time and share with the viewers your contact details, and also any other products that you may be selling? And here in the Nuggets, we want people to shamelessly sell their wares and tell people what they can offer them.
Okay. So my bookings are done via my website, which is www.familyfinances.co.za. So you pre-book, you prepay, and our sessions are online. We also have social media pages where every now and then I offer free financial related tips. Family Finances on Facebook, Finances Feme on Instagram. At the moment, I'm not selling any products, just the financial coaching services. And if you're a group of friends or just an individual, I'm available.
Thank you very much. You didn't mention WhatsApp number.
Oh, okay. So I'm available on 75480703.
Thank you so much for being our guest. You've been a wonderful guest. You've been great.
Thank you
very much.
Me.